This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised, and parental guidance is recommended for younger audiences. In a lawsuit that has sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry, singer and model Cassie Ventura has come forward with grave allegations against Sean Diddy Combs. Her claims illuminate a disturbing portrait of a relationship marred by psychological manipulation, physical violence, and systemic control. According to the complaint, Diddy allegedly introduced Cassie to an overwhelming array of illicit substances, precipitating a long-term addiction that left her psychologically and physically dependent. He is further accused of financially underwriting her lifestyle, covering expenses such as housing and transportation, which created a profound imbalance of power and made extricating herself from the relationship nearly impossible once abuse began. The lawsuit outlines numerous incidents of physical violence, asserting that Diddy subjected Cassie to repeated and brutal beatings, often in the presence of his employees. These individuals, the suit claims, remain silent out of fear of professional retaliation. One particularly egregious episode is alleged to have occurred in 2009, when Diddy reportedly stomped on Cassie's face and sequestered her in a hotel room for an entire week to conceal her injuries. Over time, Cassie describes becoming emotionally desensitized, a survival response to chronic mistreatment. She alleges that Diddy coerced her into what he termed freak-offs, drug-fueled group sexual encounters with male sex workers, which he purportedly recorded for his own gratification. Despite experiencing severe anxiety and nausea beforehand, Cassie states that she felt powerless to refuse, governed by the ever-present threat of retribution. The allegations take an even darker turn with the claim that in 2011, after Cassie briefly dated rapper Kid Cudi, Diddy physically assaulted her in a jealous rage and ominously threatened retaliation. Not long after, Cudi's car exploded in his driveway under suspicious circumstances, an incident that raises deeply unsettling questions. Even after attempting to sever ties, Cassie asserts that Diddy's extensive network of employees and enablers persistently pressured her to return. She likens the experience to psychological imprisonment, maintained through coercion, fear, and emotional blackmail. Perhaps the most devastating allegation involves a 2018 encounter, in which Cassie agreed to meet Diddy under the pretense of formally ending their relationship. The lawsuit claims that the meeting escalated into a violent sexual assault when he forcibly entered her apartment. Diddy has strenuously denied the allegations. His legal team claims that Cassie previously demanded $30 million in for her silence, threatening to publish a tell-all memoir, a demand they characterize as extortion. Although she later withdrew the threat, her formal legal complaint followed. Diddy's attorneys have since dismissed the suit as a sham, filled with what they describe as baseless and outrageous fabrications, designed to damage his reputation and extract financial gain. However, Cassie's attorney, Douglas Wigdor, contends that Diddy attempted to suppress her voice through a private offer of an 8-figure settlement, an offer she rejected. Cassie ultimately extricated herself from the relationship and went on to marry personal trainer Alex Fine in 2019. Yet the scars of her ordeal remain. In November 2023, Cassie filed a civil suit against Diddy in federal court, accusing him of rape, human trafficking, domestic violence, and other forms of abuse over the course of their decade-long relationship. The lawsuit sought monetary damages, not criminal prosecution. The lawsuit notes that she has required intensive medical and psychological care to begin the long process of healing from what she describes as nearly a decade of systemic abuse. Civil suits focus on holding someone liable, not criminally guilty, and usually involve compensation for harm rather than jail time. However, civil allegations like these can sometimes trigger criminal investigations, especially if the claims are severe and corroborated by evidence or additional witnesses. In Cassie's case, the civil suit was settled just one day after it was filed, which raised a lot of public interest and speculation. While the terms of the settlement weren't publicly disclosed, the speed of the resolution was seen by many as significant. As of 2025, Diddy is facing serious legal scrutiny, following a series of civil lawsuits and federal investigations. In March 2024, federal agents with Homeland Security investigations raided Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami as part of a broader federal sex trafficking investigation, seizing electronic devices and other evidence. Since Cassie's lawsuit, multiple additional lawsuits have emerged, with various individuals accusing Diddy of sexual assault, trafficking, distribution of illicit substances, hidden camera surveillance, and orchestrated abuse allegedly involving others within the entertainment industry. Diddy is facing a RICO charge. The RICO is central to the case and adds serious weight to the other charges. The trial is expected to continue for several more weeks. If convicted, Diddy faces up to life in prison. Cassie and Diddy's relationship spanned over a decade. From 2007 to 2018, reports claimed that Cassie was ready to settle down and hoped for a marriage proposal. However, sources suggest that Diddy wasn't prepared to make that level of commitment. Though he allegedly left Cassie with the impression that an engagement might happen, it never did, leading to frustration, arguments, and ultimately the end of their relationship. And of course, whispers of unseen Hollywood parties and ritualistic rumors have only added to the mystery, fueling speculation about what really went on behind the scenes. And when Cassie detailed some of the disturbing sexual acts she was allegedly forced to participate in, it wasn't just about physical abuse. Many of these acts, when viewed in context, resemble ritualistic humiliation and trauma bonding. This isn't unique to her case. These kinds of rituals are often described in survivor accounts from within the industry. Sexual acts in those environments become tools of psychological control, initiation, and in some cases, symbolic submission. Let's go back to Me and You. That song and its original video aren't just suggestive, they foreshadow a recurring theme: sexual performance as a means of access and power. The original version of the music video, filmed before Diddy got involved and added his budget and polish, was arguably even more explicit. In it, Cassie is seen simulating sexual acts, including oral, in a way that clearly wasn't appropriate for someone new to the industry, and certainly not for a young woman supposedly unaware of that world. If Cassie was already being primed for that role, sexually objectified before she ever met Diddy, then Diddy didn't introduce her to that world, he amplified and ritualized it. Diddy's reputation has long been surrounded by whispers of wild ritualistic parties and controlled environments where sex, drugs, and manipulation blur the lines of consent. These aren't just tabloid rumors, they're patterns. And if Cassie was involved in those rituals, we have to ask, who brought her there? Who conditioned her to accept it? This is where the conversation becomes especially uncomfortable, because the real grooming might not have started with Diddy at all. It may have begun with her early modeling career, with Ryan Leslie, or even closer to home. That kind of grooming sets someone up to accept ritual abuse as normal and to interpret exploitation as intimacy. It's easy to isolate Diddy and paint him as the sole villain, and he should absolutely be held accountable. But if we only focus on him, we miss the broader machinery. Cassie's story is not just about surviving an abusive man, it's about surviving a system built on grooming, silence, and ritualistic degradation disguised as fame. The more I research Cassie's early career, the more remarkable it becomes that she survived the industry at all. She began as a model for Abercrombie & Fitch, a company whose former CEO has faced disturbing allegations similar to those currently surrounding Diddy. Specifically, he was accused of exploiting and abusing young aspiring male models. It's not uncommon for modeling to serve as a facade for more insidious operations, particularly high-end escorting rings that prey on vulnerable youth-chasing fame. Cassie's entry point into the industry appears to have been part of this broader and deeply exploitative system. In a past magazine interview, she mentioned posing for the cover at just 14. During one of those shoots, her father, who was present, was reportedly so disturbed that he had to leave the room until she was clothed. Rather than intervening or removing her from that situation, he chose to walk away, leaving his daughter exposed in more ways than one. It raises a haunting question: where was the protection she deserved? That question becomes even more pressing when we consider that her parents did have some level of involvement early in her career. When she first connected with Ryan Leslie, it was reportedly her mother who encouraged her to explore the opportunity and helped facilitate the demo that launched her into the music industry. There was a parental presence, at least in the beginning, yet, during the recent legal proceedings, where Cassie gave harrowing testimony against Diddy, her parents were nowhere to be seen. Her brother reportedly attended, as did her husband Alex Vine, but there has been no public mention of her mother or father offering support from the courtroom. The contrast is striking. Her parents were present when doors were first being opened for her, but seemingly absent when she was fighting to close the ones that nearly destroyed her. It leaves us with a chilling reflection on how fame, family, and exploitation often intertwine in ways that defy understanding. Cassie Ventura and Ryan Leslie were in a romantic relationship from February 2002 to March 2007, spanning approximately 5 years. Cassie was 15 years old when they met, and Ryan was 23. During this period, Leslie played a pivotal role in launching Cassie's music career. He signed her to his label, Next Selection Lifestyle Group. Their collaboration led to the release of her debut single, Me and You, in 2006, which became a significant hit. In recent court testimony, Cassie revealed that she began a relationship with Diddy in 2006 while still involved with Leslie. This overlap contributed to the end of her relationship with Leslie in 2007. The confusion about Cassie's age when she began dating Diddy, whether she was 19, 21, or 22, comes from inconsistent public narratives, media reports, and a lack of clear timelines during their relationship, which was largely private in the early years. Here's why some people say she was 22. Delayed public acknowledgement. Cassie and Diddy did not publicly confirm their romantic relationship until around 2007 to 2008. Cassie was born in August 1986, which means she would have been 21 or 22 at the time their relationship became public. This has led some to assume that their relationship began when she was 22, when in fact it likely just became public around that time. Diddy and Cassie had a significant age gap. He's 17 years older, so keeping their relationship under wraps for a few years may have been intentional, for branding, legal caution, or public image. Once it became public, it was safer PR-wise to have people believe she was already 22 or older, rather than a teenager or very young adult when it began. Cassie unveiled a lot without explicitly saying certain words. Why this matters in the industry? One word: Thelema. Thelema sex magic is a spiritual and occult practice rooted in the teachings of Aleister Crowley, the early 20th century occultist who founded the religion or philosophy of Thelema. At its core, sex magic in Thelema is the intentional use of sexual energy to manifest spiritual, magical, or material outcomes. This is why sex magic shows up in Hollywood, fashion, and music industry rumors. Certain elites are alleged to practice thelemic sex magic or similar occult traditions to gain fame, influence, or wealth by sacrificing others' energy. The sex itself isn't the goal, the energetic exchange and intention behind it is. If one partner is unaware of the spiritual transaction taking place, they can be used as a conduit for another person's gain. Cassie talked about being forced into situations that most people can't even fathom. And she didn't just tell a story, she described ritualistic behavior. She said that during some of these so-called freak-offs, Diddy would have male escorts do unspeakable things. There were even moments where he dictated when they could act, where they could act, and then he'd leave the room with her. They'd go into another room, and he would have her rub bodily fluids on his chest before going back in to repeat the act. You might think that's just twisted behavior, but if you're spiritually awake, you know exactly what that is. That's a ritual. This isn't just celebrity freaky behavior. This is sex magic, as taught by Aleister Crowley and Thelema, the occult philosophy that dominates many elite circles in Hollywood. Thelema teaches that sexual energy is one of the most powerful forces in existence, and when it's harnessed during specific acts, especially group rituals, it becomes a conduit for demonic power. That's why these orgies aren't just depravity, they're ceremonies. They're spiritual contracts. You think it's just for pleasure? Think again. These people are gaining access, favor, and power in the spiritual realm by doing this stuff. That's why they always seem to stay on top no matter what they do. And the scariest part? Most people don't see it. They idolize these celebrities so much they overlook the demonic behavior right in front of them. Many of them are under a spell, literally. They're using sex, manipulation, and fear to bind people spiritually. And sadly, a lot of people are willing to overlook it just to keep worshiping their idols. Now let's talk about Diddy for a second. It's important to understand that a lot of these abusers were once victims themselves. He used to be Cassie, meaning someone did to him what he eventually did to her. He was groomed, and now he's become the very monster that groomed him. This is how the cycle continues. Victims become perpetrators, and the system protects it until someone steps out of line, and then they get eaten alive by the same system that once protected them. Sex is not just physical, it's deeply spiritual. When done outside of God's design, it opens doors to demonic influence, even if you don't believe in it. Every sexual encounter forms soul ties and spiritual bonds that can drain your energy, distort your emotions, and give demons legal access to your life. Many people unknowingly suffer from spiritual oppression, thinking it's just trauma, mental illness, or bad choices, when it's actually demonic influence. Demons often enter through sin, especially sexual sin, and they don't need your permission, just an open door. The entertainment industry thrives on spiritual inversion. It doesn't just influence culture, it initiates people into darkness through music, media, and occult practices. This isn't conspiracy anymore, it's spiritual reality. Even thoughts that seem like your own, violent urges, confusion, or emotional chaos can be spiritual attacks. Spirits transfer through sex, proximity, and emotional connection. If the person you're intimate with is spiritually compromised, maybe they have entities attached to them, unresolved trauma, dark energy, or curses, then all of that can begin to flow into you. It's like creating a one-way tunnel straight into your energy field. Now here's where it gets deeper. When you deal with someone like Diddy, it becomes even more dangerous. These types of people are consciously siphoning energy from others. They know what they're doing. They don't just feed off one person. They often feed off multiple people at once to fuel themselves spiritually, emotionally and materially. If you're not spiritually aware or protected, your energy can easily be harvested and drained over time without you even realizing it. And this kind of energy theft can show up in your life as fatigue, depression, confusion, blocked blessings, or even illness. It's important to understand this doesn't only apply to women being drained by men or vice versa. Anyone of any gender can be the siphoner or the one being siphoned if they have the knowledge and intent to do it. That's why spiritual hygiene is non-negotiable. Be careful who you entangle with spiritually. They can manifest through you. Did you know that some people can literally manifest their dream life through you? Some of you were born with a golden light, a natural ability to create with ease, to draw abundance and opportunities into your life effortlessly. But being that golden light in a dark room makes you a magnet for parasitic energies, especially those that inhabit unhealed or selfish people. These entities can sense your power, and they want a piece of it. This is especially true when it comes to romantic connections. When you choose the wrong partner, particularly one who is narcissistic or carries heavy dark energy, they can start manifesting through you, through your sexual and creative energy. It's powerful. It's sacred. And if you're not discerning, it can be hijacked. All these artists that were signed to Diddy felt like they lost everything. Their clarity, their grounding, their ability to create. Why? Because they gave energetic access to someone who drained them, someone who siphoned their life force. The reason Diddy is so obsessed with taking people, both men and women, is because he wants to open portals through them. Women are naturally open portals. Women are gateways for life, energy, and spirit. Men, on the other hand, have closed portals, but access to their energy still exists, just through a much more forceful, shocking way. That's why violating a man like that gives full access to his entire energy system. When he takes man's manhood, he's not just committing a physical act, he's energetically siphoning them. That's why so many people who've encountered Diddy end up looking completely lifeless. You can tell they're not fully here anymore, because a part of them was taken. Cassie may have unknowingly consented to having her energy siphoned or her spirit sacrificed. Many people engage in these dynamics without realizing what they're truly agreeing to in the spiritual realm. The aftermath of being used in sex magic or as a spiritual sacrifice often leaves victims feeling emotionally drained, mentally broken, and spiritually attacked. Cassie likely struggled with sudden depression, a loss of motivation, confusion, or a persistent sense of being cursed or stuck. In more severe cases, people report unexplained illnesses, recurring injuries, or chronic bad luck that seems to follow them everywhere. If these signs were present in her life, it's a clear signal that she was entangled in something much darker. She would have needed serious spiritual cleansing, targeted prayer, and divine protection to reclaim her peace and power. Lustful men who sleep around aren't just promiscuous, they are warlocks. They siphon energy and use the essence of the women they conquer to attract others. And the reason Cassie kept going back to him wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. She was searching for her essence, the part of her soul he took. Signs she was being used as a sexual sacrifice. Substance-fueled intimacy. One of the biggest red flags is when someone only seeks intimacy with you while you're under the influence, drunk, high, or otherwise chemically altered. That's not a coincidence. Substances lower your defenses. They cloud your intuition, make you more vulnerable, and open your spiritual gates. Under the influence, you're less likely to sense danger, less spiritually guarded, and more easily manipulated. Why is this dangerous? Because when your vibration is lowered, you become more susceptible to spiritual intrusion. Dark parasitic entities often enter through portals created during intercourse, especially when you're spiritually disarmed. That's exactly why some people insist on intimacy only when you're intoxicated. It's not just about control, it's about energy harvesting and even spiritual sacrifice. Another sign is being pursued by someone significantly older, especially if they're secretive, controlling, or hyper-focused on you. Not every age gap relationship is predatory, but in spiritual warfare, age and power differences can be exploited. Cassie may have unknowingly become a conduit for energy, favor, or even a spiritual sacrifice, especially if Diddy saw her as energetically potent. Another sign is intimacy for money or lavish gifts. If someone is offering financial support, expensive gifts, or trips in exchange for intimacy, this may be more than just transactional, it may be spiritual. In many occult circles, this is considered a silent contract. By accepting those gifts, she may have unknowingly consented to energy exchange, soul binding, or spiritual exploitation. These aren't just gifts, they're rituals masked as generosity. Further proof of sexual rituals being performed was when Cassie detailed what she had to do, from rubbing male fluids on Diddy, to timed controlled sexual acts in dirty rooms filled with candle wax and blood, these aren't just bizarre fetishes, they're occult practices. It was said Diddy allegedly wanted to have intercourse with Cassie while she was on her period as part of a ritualistic act tied to sex magic and blood sacrifice. In occult and Luciferian circles, menstrual blood is considered a powerful spiritual substance, symbolizing both life and death, which, when combined with sexual energy, is thought to amplify manifestation power or deepen demonic pacts. Engaging in intercourse during menstruation, especially intentionally during a ritual or under coercive control, can be a way to spiritually bind, dominate, or siphon energy from the other person. If this was done with sacrificial intent, it suggests he may have been using her blood and sexual energy to feed spiritual forces or gain favor in the industry through dark esoteric practices. Spitting in the mouth. Some men will spit in your mouth during intercourse. You may think it's just kink, but spiritually, this is ritual. It's an act of energy transfer, a non-consensual contract. Semen. When a man ejaculates inside of you, especially outside of divine covenant, marriage, he leaves more than just DNA. His emotional baggage, trauma, and spiritual residue remain in your womb. Many women experience symptoms like BV, recurring yeast infections, or persistent anxiety after being intimate with spiritually unclean men. Cassie expressed that antibiotics didn't work against her reoccurring BV. That's not just biology, that's spiritual warfare. Urine sex rituals. Cassie alleged in her testimony that she was forced to ingest urine from Diddy and a hired person, causing her to choke. Cassie openly shared that she was choking on urine, a statement so jarring many people glossed over it or took it purely at face value. But if you understand the spiritual layers of sex magic and ritual humiliation, you realize this was no ordinary act of fetish or kink. It was a ritual of control. Some men engage in acts involving urine as a form of domination, humiliation, and energetic control. In occult rituals, bodily fluids are never just bodily fluids. They are carriers of essence, spiritual signatures that can bind, mark, or curse. Urine is used in some occult traditions as a way to mark, spiritually defile, or bind someone. When someone urinates on you, especially in a sexual or violent context, they're not just disrespecting your body. They're attempting to lower your vibration, taint your spiritual essence, and gain access to your energy through humiliation. Being made to choke on someone's urine is one of the lowest forms of dehumanization, and in a ritual context, it serves as a powerful act of submission, often used to shatter the person's sense of identity, sever their connection to divine protection, create emotional and spiritual trauma that can be harvested or controlled. That one detail, choking on urine, tells you everything you need to know about the level of spiritual warfare and degradation she endured. The higher you ascend in society, whether through wealth, influence, or fame, the more you have to sacrifice. And I mean that quite literally. At a certain point, success is no longer just about talent, strategy, or hard work. It becomes an invitation, or an initiation, into a very exclusive and deeply concealed network. A network that operates far above the visible systems of power. This elite class is not governed by morality, empathy, or even humanity as we understand it. In fact, many of them lack humanity altogether. Though they may appear human, their actions, values, and agendas portray something else entirely. They exert control over nearly every major institution, media conglomerates, healthcare systems, food and water distribution, financial markets, transportation, and beyond. Once you approach their level, you're no longer just a successful individual, you're seen as either a tool or a threat. And if you don't willingly align with their agenda, they will find ways to manipulate, coerce, or destroy you. There is no neutral ground. Make no mistake, Diddy is not the root of the problem, he's a symptom, a carefully chosen fall guy. While it's clear he's guilty of many dark acts, he's also serving as a convenient distraction from the even darker forces operating above him, those who orchestrate and enable these behaviors behind closed doors. In order to gain and maintain access to this elite tier of society, one must participate in, and often be complicit with, ritualistic degradation, spiritual compromise, and psychological control. It's not unlike fraternity hazing, except far more sinister. Dehumanization is a requirement, not an accident. Integrity must be abandoned. And for many, their very soul becomes a bargaining chip. Especially in the entertainment industry, success is often less about art and more about allegiance. Contracts aren't just legal, they're spiritual. Some artists knowingly engage with dark forces in exchange for visibility and influence. Others are coerced or tricked into submission. Either way, the outcome is the same, the surrender of autonomy. To the outsider, celebrities appear to live in luxury and freedom. But behind the scenes, many are bound by invisible chains, subject to control, blackmail, and constant surveillance. True free will is a luxury they no longer possess, and if they rebel, if they try to expose the truth or break free, they're swiftly dealt with. Their careers collapse, their reputations are destroyed, some disappear entirely. Now, if you're spiritually discerning, you've probably already sensed it. These individuals at the top, these so-called elites, do not all seem fully human. There is something other about them, a hybrid nature perhaps, a spiritual origin that is not of light. They view themselves as superior, and humanity as a resource to be exploited, emotionally, financially, energetically. To them, the masses are not people. We are energy sources, currency, tools, and sacrifices. So for those aspiring to achieve wealth and fame at the highest levels, you must ask yourself a sobering question. Are you prepared to pay the cost? Because they will not allow you into their world unless you first prove that you are just as corruptible, just as cold, and just as devoid of conscience as they are. And once you've crossed that threshold, there's no turning back. Whether or not Cassie believed she needed to participate in those rituals to achieve success, and whether she was a willing participant at some point, her testimony makes one thing clear. There came a time when she no longer wanted to be involved. What began as a pathway to fame turned into something traumatic, abusive, and deeply degrading. Experiences like that don't just leave emotional scars, they rewire the brain. Trauma alters the way neurotransmitters function, leading to changes in personality, values, and even one's sense of self. Over time, you start to believe the abuse is what you deserve. The lies your abuser tells you become your internal truth. According to her, everything he allegedly said to her, the way he treated her, eventually became her new normal. That kind of psychological conditioning is incredibly difficult to untangle. This is why people can't understand why she didn't just leave. It's never that simple when your soul is bound and tormented. Those rituals open spiritual doors, granting demonic entities access to her life. She repeatedly said on the stand, "It's what Sean wanted." But the truth is, it wasn't just about what he wanted, it was about what those demons wanted. He was being used as a vessel by dark spiritual forces. At one point in her testimony, she described Diddy's eyes going completely black. That's a clear sign of deep demonic infestation, and those same spirits that operated through him had access to her. I truly pray that someone close to her has the courage to shine the light of truth, because after enduring that kind of darkness, what she needs isn't more therapy, fame, or escape. She needs Jesus. That is the only way to be truly free.